cover some last things to help you prepare for the final, and there's going to be some questions along the way. So first thing you want to do is get a piece of paper or open a word editor off to the side so you can jot things down when it gets to that point in the video, so you can answer the questions that accompany this video, which will be a separate assignment. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is what grade do you need to get on the final to meet the requirement to get a 63% test scores. As you've seen in multiple places in the syllabus, there's a requirement for the midterm and the final in order to pass the class with a 2.0. And so I want you to figure out what that is for you. You might have to go to Canvas to look up these numbers if you don't know. So the midterm is worth 100 points, and the final exam is worth 200 points. All right, so that's a total of 300 points. Now, what you need to do is get at least 63% on these two tests, but weighted as they're weighted. So the final's weighted twice as much as the midterm. So here's how you're going to figure it out. All right, so you need to earn at least 63% of the 300 points that are possible. So if we take 300 and multiply that by 0.63, we end up with 189. Let's get rid of this. That's not a decimal, it's just a little spot. Okay. So you need to get at least 189 points from these two assignments, or two assessments, I should say. All right, so what you need to do is you need to go look up your midterm grade, which is out of 100. So whatever percent you got on the midterm would be how many points out of 100. I'll just do an example. Let's say I got 72% on the midterm, okay, which means I got 72 points. So on my midterm, I earned 72 points since it's out of 100. Well, I need to get 189 points in order to meet the minimum requirement, and I've already earned 72. So if I take 189 minus 72, I end up with 117. That means I need to earn 117 points on the final exam. Well, remember, the final exam is worth 200. So for the final, this person would need to earn 117 points out of 200. And if you want to know the percent for that, you just punch that into your calculator, and this one would be about 58.5%. Okay, that would be the minimum amount required in order to meet the 63% criteria. Now remember, you have to do two things in order to pass the final, or not pass the final, but get a 2.0 for the course. To get a 2.0, at least a 2.0. First thing you have to do is meet this test requirement that we have just outlined here. You need this 63% to meet the test required scores. Okay, second thing you need to do is have an overall grade of at least greater than or equal to 73%. Okay, if you've met both those things, then you're going to get at least a 2.0 for the course, and your grade will be determined by the grading scale that's in your syllabus. So question number 1 for the assignment that goes along with this is, what grade do you need to get on your final exam in order to meet the minimum requirement for the percent to pass the class? Now, for this person, they only need a 58%, 59% to pass the 63% threshold for the tests. And that may get them this thing right here. Maybe they'll meet the first test score requirement, but with a score like 58% on the final, there's a good chance they would not meet criteria 2 and then therefore not be able to pass the class with a 2.0. So you need to be able to do both. All right, so that's your question number 1. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is just things you can do to prepare for a test. And we've talked about a couple of these things. First thing is to complete a mock test. And I would say that last quiz that we had, that grand finale quiz, is your best tool that you could use for a mock test. And when we say a mock test, you want to try to recreate the environment of a test. And we've talked about this before of just giving yourself a time limit, not using extra helps, just like you would on a test. Sleep. All right. This is super important. You are going to complete this test with the help of your brain, and your brain is just a piece of your body that needs sleep. If you guys were going to run a race tomorrow or do some kind of an athletic thing and require something of your body, you would make sure you get enough sleep so your body can perform at its best. And I think this is quite underrated. Second thing is to eat properly. Now, same idea. This is your body. You're fueling your brain. You're asking your brain to remember things. So you have to give it the fuel that it needs. And whatever that is for you, whatever makes you feel the best. And you obviously know what that is. But, eat well. Some people say, "Oh, I had to hurry to the test, so I didn't eat breakfast." Ugh, come on. You got to eat breakfast. You got to give your body some fuel there. You have to take care of yourself, so plan that out. Make sure you have enough time to do that. Take a walk. This is a piece of advice that I got from somebody that has really helped me out before taking a test. Just go outside and walk for 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Just get some fresh air. Don't be, kind of goes with the next thing. Don't cram right before the test. Do not sit there and study 2 hours before the test and then walk right into the test. The studying needs to happen the days and weeks before the test. So once you get to, the day of the test, you might refresh yourself of something, but you're pretty much gonna get what you're gonna get. All you can do now is just try to do these things: sleep, eat right, refresh your mind, take a walk, relax, in order to optimize what you've already learned. You're not going to be able to learn that much more. All right. Question number 2. How important is sleep? So the answer is very important. There you go. I just gave you the answer to question number 2. Next thing we want to talk about is taking the test. Just a couple pieces of advice for taking the test. Read the directions carefully. A lot of people, especially on math tests, they just see a problem and they start it. Make sure you read the directions. That'll help focus your mind on what it is you're trying to accomplish. A lot of people don't do this guy right here. Glance over the entire test before starting. This is another little brain help that you can do for your brain, is just look over the whole test. Okay, I got factoring problems, I have square root problems, I've got a couple story problems here. Here's the one where I have to graph a parabola. That gets your brain thinking about all the kind of things that it's going to be asked to recall. We have a subconscious mind that's working on problems while our conscious mind is working on a different problem. So just, just peruse it and feed all those problems into your brain. Your brain's going to start working on the problems coming up even before you get there and start recalling the important information. Complete the problems you're most confident about first. If you get to a problem that you are not sure about and you're struggling with it a little bit, just say to yourself, I'm going to come back to it. I'll remember how to do this later. Circle it. Just go through the problems you're most confident about first. When I have big tests, what I used to do is, especially if it was a multi-page test, at the bottom of each page, if I got done, I'd put a little check or something, or a little X, like this page is complete. I've got everything done that I can do. If there was something on that paper, some question I needed to come back to that I had circled, then I wouldn't put this here, and I'd know when I do the end, I'm going to look at each page and see if there's anything I need to come back to. All right, so circle back, circle back to the problems you want to come back to once you complete everything. Sometimes this is a multi-step process. You get to a problem and I still don't know. I'm going to skip it. I'll go to the next one. And maybe you end up circling back 2 or 3 times. At the very end, you need to look over all the problems you did before you turn in your test. So go back to each page. If you've done this little check mark thing, that one's done. And make sure every page has got a little check mark or something that has indicated that that page is complete and the best you can do. Remember, partial credit is your friend. So give me something to grade. If you're not sure, jot down what you think you might do. Maybe that'll get you a couple points out of 5 or 6. That's better than a 0. And lastly, do your best. That's all you can ask of yourself. Don't worry about a certain grade. Don't worry about a certain percent. All you can do is do your best. And if you felt like you've done your best, then you should feel happy and satisfied with the work that you've done because it was the best that you could do. So question number 3 is, which of these steps do you think might be most helpful to you in taking your final exam? And you can say more than one thing. If you think all of them, list them all. If there's some of these you don't think will be helpful for you, then you could skip them. But question number 3 is to list which one of these test-taking skills you think will be helpful for you. Just a reminder, the things you need to bring to the final exam. Make sure you have a pencil, an eraser. I always like to have a nice eraser. Scientific calculator, no graphing calculators are allowed, just scientific calculator, and you need a picture ID. Then it doesn't have to be a school ID, it just needs to have your photograph on it and your name so we know that you are the person taking your test. If you bring a mechanical pencil, you might want to bring extra lead. Alright guys, well that pretty much wraps it up. Good luck, and try to do these things that we've talked about today to prepare for the test. And I think most importantly is to just focus on the question that you're doing. A lot of people will ask me, how are the questions on the test different than the ones on the review? They're not. They're the same exact questions. And students will say, well, I get to the test and I freak out, and it's the same kind of, that's because it's a test. It's because you're not focusing on the problem. So in some cases, students don't know the material well enough to, they haven't practiced it in a testing environment. But if you are getting these problems when you're taking a mock test and you're understanding them when you're going through that final review, final quiz, you need to tell yourself and remind yourself that this problem on this final exam is the exact same problem that I just did on the review. And you have to forget that it's on the final. You need to fake yourself out and just tell yourself you're doing a practice test. I did that with a student one time. She kept struggling with tests, and I said, oh, here, just take this practice test and sit there till you're done. Well, it was the actual test, and she ended up doing fine because she thought it was a practice test. So, she knew how to do the problems. Just focus on the problem at hand. All right, I think you guys are going to do great. Good luck. Let me know if you have any final questions. And it was great working with you this quarter.